Hey, good day to you. This is Todd. I am a regular dude walking in the Word. We are making a transition here in Deuteronomy. We're jumping into chapter 2, and we're going to hit the first 23 verses today. It's entitled today, Taking Only What the Lord Has Given You. You're going to see that we're moving in towards the promised land, and God says, hey, I'm giving you land, but not this land that you're going to pass through. So don't be taking it. All right. And it applies to us because sometimes we think, oh, yeah, the Lord's given us. And so we just take everything, just gobble it all up. Like, no, God never intended that we just take everything. Um, but so you're going to see here how this all plays out and why God said, you're not to take this land because it belonged to someone else that he promised it to. So let's read here today. This is taken from Deuteronomy chapter 2, and I'm going to be reading verses 1 through 23 today. It says this, Then we turned back and set out toward the wilderness along the route to the Red Sea, as the Lord had directed me. For a long time we made our way around the hill country of Seir. Then the Lord said to me, You have made your way around this hill country long enough. Now turn north. Give the people these orders. You are to pass through the territories of your relatives, the descendants of Esau, who live in Seir. They will be afraid of you, but be very careful. Do not provoke them to war, for I will not give you any of their land, not even enough to put your foot on. I have given Esau the hill country of Seir as his own. You are to pay them in silver for the food you eat and the water you drink. Okay, so this land they're passing through was given to Esau. Esau, remember, is the brother of Jacob. They were, twins, and you can go back into Genesis and read through that story about Jacob and Esau. But God's promise was with, and he was the chosen people were part of Jacob's family. But he wasn't leaving Esau out in the cold. He also promised an inheritance to Esau, and this was the inheritance. So they were descendants, really. So they weren't to take this land. They were just passed through. If they took anything, they were to pay for it. Any food and water and so forth. Verse 7, The Lord your God has blessed you in all the work of your hands. He has watched over your journey through this vast wilderness. These 40 years, the Lord your God has been with you, and you have not lacked anything. Okay? The shoes weren't wearing out. They had, the manna every day, all that stuff. God had taken care of them. They weren't attacked, and robbed and so forth. It was God had taken care of them for 40 years while they're wandering in the wilderness. Verse 8, So we went on past our relatives, the descendants of Esau, who live in Seir. We turned from Arabah road, which comes up from Eleph and Ezon and Gerber, and traveled along the desert road of Moab. Then the Lord said to me, Do not harass the Moabites or provoke them to war, for I will not give any part of their land. I have given Ar to the descendants of Lot as a possession. Okay, Lot is a relative of Abraham, so it goes all the way back to Lot. And if you remember, Lot was the guy that, you go back to Genesis, and you can read through that story. Lot kind of did his own thing, and eventually, moved in towards Sodom and Gomorrah, and then the angels, took him out of Sodom and Gomorrah, and his wife, lost her life along the way because she turned back. And then the descendants here they're talking about is when Lot and his two daughters finally got to a safe place, the daughters thought, oh no, what are we going to do? We won't have any descendants. So they got Lot drunk and had sex with Lot, and the offspring of that relationship, incestuous relationship, were these descendants here. That's what we're talking about here. These descendants of Lot, they had this land, and the Israelites were not to take that land. Verse 10. The Amites used to live there, a people strong and numerous, and as tall as the Anakites. Like the Anakites, they too were considered Raphites, but the Moabites called them Emites. Horites used to live in Seir, but the descendants of Esau drove them out. They destroyed the Horites from before them and settled in their place, just as Israel did in the land the Lord gave them as their possession. And the Lord said, "Now get up and cross the Zered Valley." So he crossed the valley. 38 years had passed from the time we left Kadesh Barnea until we crossed the Zered Valley. By then, the entire generation of fighting men had perished from the camp, as the Lord had sworn to them. The Lord's hand was against them until he had completely eliminated them from the camp. We had talked this about in the last, in Numbers, how there was there was probably funerals every day with the amount of people dying. That generation died off in this 38 years here. Verse 16. Now when the last of these fighting men among the people had died, the Lord said to me, "Today you are passed by the region of Moab at Ar. When you come to the Ammonites, do not harass them or provoke them to war, for I will not give you possession of any of the land belonging to Ammon, or the Ammonites. I have given it as a possession to the descendants of Lot." That too was considered a land of the Raphites, who used to live there. But the Ammonites called them Zamuites, and they were people strong and numerous, and as tall as the Anakites. Anakites were considered giants, if you remember. The Lord destroyed them before the Ammonites, who drove them out and settled in their place. The Lord had done the same for the descendants of Esau, who lived in Seir, when he destroyed the Horites from before them. They drove them out before them, and they drove them out and have lived in that place to this day. And as for the Avites who lived in the villages as far as Gezer, the Kapharites coming out of Kaphor destroyed them and settled in their place. Several things here. Moses is quick to point out their descendants from Lot and then also Esau. Those are the two main descendant groups we're talking about here. They were to pass through that land, and Moses points out that there was giants living in the land of those two people groups before, but these people drove them out. Okay, so it's not just a coincidence that Moses says that. Moses is saying that to say these people, they drove out the giants, and we know there's going to be giants in the promised land, and so that they can be driven out also. Okay, so that's the big thing. The other thing here is this, and this is the thing I really want to focus on. They were to take only what the Lord gave them. They weren't to the promised land yet. They were on their way there, but they weren't to be grabbing up all these pieces of land, because that was for other descendants. God had land for them. They had a promise for them. So sometimes we think that everything that comes along, the Lord has given me, and which the Lord didn't intend to give everything to you. Okay, the Lord gave you specific stuff, and then you're to take that. But not everything that comes along is from the Lord. And so God instructed them through Moses, they're to only take the promised land, not everything. So that's my warning and caution to you. Not everything that comes along is from the Lord. And the Lord doesn't want you to have everything that comes along. The Lord wants you to have what he is giving you. Okay? So it's up to you to discern what the Lord is giving you. So anyway, thank you for watching. I am a regular dude walking in the Word, and I look forward to seeing you next time as we continue looking at chapter 2 of the book of Deuteronomy. Lord's blessing. I'll see you tomorrow.